What's going on, guys, and welcome to the 10th day of Christmas. My name is Eric, and welcome to the Nomad YouTube channel. Now, as I do every year, I travel for Christmas. My parents are obviously split, so usually on the weekend before Christmas or going into Christmas Eve, I go down and see my mother, and then for Christmas Day, I come up and see my father's side of the family. So I kind of have two Christmases, which obviously involves a lot of traveling, which means I usually can't do 12 live streams. I don't think I've ever been able to do 12 live streams for this, so I always have a couple of recorded videos to do, and this year we are going to be doing this video and tomorrow's video, as well as the annual recorded video, which is the digital holiday Christmas card that goes up on Christmas Day for the 12th day of Christmas. Today, we're going to be discussing pagan traditions. Now, I've been kind of looking at a lot of different things, and obviously over the last few years, my friend group has evolved. Now, I actually have a few very close friends that kind of celebrate the paganistic tradition of more earthly religions. Not so much religions, but more spirituality, where they look at more of the spirit of trees, spirit of the world, if you will, spirit of the stars, the astrology people, all that stuff. And while I don't fully understand it, it is pretty interesting to hear them describe it. Whether or not I believe in it or not, I respect them to sort of listen and try to understand where their spirituality is coming from. And talking with them, I started to, I've always known that Christianity, in terms of Christmas, I guess the Christmas tradition, tends to pair with a lot of pagan traditions, but I've always been so curious or confused as to why so many Christians cling to a lot of these traditions that, to me, would seem to be very un-Christian-like. Now, in full disclosure, most people probably know this, but if you're new to the channel, or you've never heard me discuss religion because I typically don't, or on any of these platforms, I'm agnostic. I don't necessarily believe in the Christian faith, but I'm also not an atheist where I don't believe there's anything there. I don't really know what's there. I was a science student in college, so that kind of adds a lot to it, but I don't really have any dead set belief when it comes to religion. I'm more focused on being the best person that I can be while I'm here on Earth, and whatever happens when I finally pass on, that's dead me's problem. You know what I mean? Like, that's spirit me. He can worry about what goes on after I'm gone, but alive me is going to worry about what I can do now. So I've never really, made religion a huge part of my life. Even when I was a Christian, I never really made a lot of these traditions or faith-based requirements a part of my life. So I never really thought much past Christmas. For me, Christmas has always been one of the happier times. I know a lot of people have seasonal depression around these times, but for me, I've always enjoyed the family part. Like, the family gets together and they have the feast. Ours is always Christmas morning breakfast, right? Some people do dinner, some people do Christmas Eve dinner. What I didn't realize was that is actually not a Christmas tradition initially. I had no idea that the feast that so many people have is actually a pagan tradition. So we're going to end up discussing a lot of these, and we're going to start off with this. What are you? What is happening? What is happening with my background? Excuse me. There we go. I have always had a fireplace there. You didn't see it not exist for a second. The fireplace has always been there. What are you talking about? Anyway, we're going to discuss paganism here. Now, a lot of people that I know that are in the heavy religious faith view paganism on the same tone as Satanism. And I have a lot of people that legitimately feel that paganism is the sufficient as that's not the word I'm looking for, but you know what I mean. Basically the same thing as Satanism, which I knew was clearly a stretch. But basically paganism is a religion other than one of the main world religions, specifically a non-Christian or a pre-Christian religion. This is going to be talking about your Roman pantheon, your Greek pantheon, your Egyptian pantheon. Those are all your paganistic religions. it also kind of gets into more of the manifestation within nature, divinity of different things, such as the divinity of love, divinity of the earth, divinity of trees, divinity of water, so on and so forth. If you're a Final Fantasy 14 person, which is something I frequent on this channel, the 12 of Eorzea in that game could be considered a paganistic religion. These are terms that I didn't really think about when I was doing my research for this video. But it's so interesting to see how a lot of these old Roman religions are what ended up leading to a lot of our Christian faiths. There's a couple of different articles that I have here that we're going to kind of go through. This is the one that I first stumbled upon. It's a Quora, which is sort of like your question dashboard or bullet board that I saw in here. And there was a whole bunch of them, like holly is apparently initially a pagan religion. You have mistletoe, ivy, which I don't really know too much about. Laurel wreaths are supposed to be a sign of prosperity, safety. Bringing a Christmas tree into the house, which actually is not entirely true. I believe it was either the one above this or another one actually mentions that the ancient Romans did not bring trees into the house. That was something that kind of got started again in the 17th, 18th century when we started to bring those traditions over to America and the UK. That's when we started bringing the evergreen trees inside. But typically what they used to do was they used to decorate the evergreen trees because evergreens never lose their leaves. And so it was supposed to be a sign of everlasting life and, again, a further sign of prosperity, which is a common thread that I've seen in doing my research on this. Wassailing, what is this? What the hell is wassailing? Hold on. Google. Why did I just Google? Oh God. Wassailing? What is that? Gerund?
Wassail.
Wassail. Drank plentiful amounts of alcohol and enjoyed himself. What? What is this? Oh! Caroling! I didn't do any research on this. I don't know anything about this. Caroling was a pagan religion. What was a pagan tradition? Are you serious? So was burning down the villages, apparently. An excuse for hot cider, dancing, and fun. That's the Myrtle Wib, which is a Welsh tradition, I believe. I probably completely butchered that spelling. I knew that was a pagan tradition initially, but that's something they do in the UK. Crazy. I never thought about that. Green leaves and red berries. Group singing, which I feel like it's just wassailing. Or wassailing. The Yule log, which I've heard about, and the winter solstice, which of course is technically today, the day that I'm filming this, which is the 21st. And then obviously candles. I knew that because candles are more of a spiritual thing that obviously started around the Roman times. Now, obviously, I was doing a little bit of research on here, but I haven't fully read all of these articles. I read these articles enough to know these were going to talk about things that I wanted to discuss today, but not enough to where I was like, okay, cool. These articles are exactly what I was looking for. So I don't know how much I'll be using from each one of these, but I do know that some of the terminology here I'm not a big fan of, like ripping off ancient Rome. It wasn't really ripping off ancient Rome. Even the way this is described, it was just more of an adaptation, which I don't really consider ripping off because it's not like they're trying to, you know what I mean? Like it's everything, religion back in ancient Roman times kind of evolved, right? You had the Roman pantheon and then Judaism came around and then Christianity came around because of obviously Jesus, and the difference between those two is just being Christians believe that Jesus is the Son of God, whereas the Jewish people believe that he was just a prophet. And then you have Muslim, which is the third book that goes on afterwards. I don't know much about that, to be perfectly honest with you. But basically, Saturnalia was the initial Roman festival that took place in the winter, celebrated Saturn, the god of agricultural liberation and parties. Again, common theme here. You have the trees, you decorate them. There's a lot of earthy decorations such as the holly and the ivy and the wreaths and all that good stuff that you see in here. And of course, the parties getting together. Usually marked by gift giving, feasting, and general merriment. Saturnalia took place on the 17th of December and was stretched to 3 and then 7 days long. Think of The Hangover. Thank you for the humor. Didn't realize that I was going to be reading it like that. Oops. In the later Roman Empire, Dies Natalis of Sol Invictus, or the birthday of the unconquerable sun, was marked to celebrate the days getting longer and coming of the new year. This party took place on, would you believe it, December 25th. These two festivals were already popular, and like all things cool and fun, were instantly... Okay, yep, there we go. There's the opinion. Thank you, Euro News. That is exactly what I wanted to see. This is cringe. Okay. Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. It spread to Germanic religions, which closely linked to Scandinavian culture, already had their own winter celebrations. Mourning the Night of the Mothers was held on Christmas Eve and may involve some sacrifices. What? Ah, yes, because nothing says Christmas like sacrificing the children. Meanwhile, Yule, celebrated between November and January, was a time when cattle and other animals would be slaughtered so they wouldn't have to be fed through the winter. What? That doesn't seem correct. Next time you're trying to dodge an unwanted advance from a colleague into the mistletoe, it's worth... Okay, you know what? You're done. You're done, kid. You're done. We'll move on to a different article. Anyway, but basically what that was trying to say, without the horrible puns and the clear opinions rather than facts there, was that obviously a lot of these celebrations were originally for other reasons, and they just became adapted into the Christmas celebrations. Now, I had heard of these, and we mentioned these earlier. Gift giving was something that was a pagan tradition. I've always been very curious as to where that came from. Well, I know where it came from, but I've always been very curious how it got adapted to Christmas. For those of you that don't know, gift giving was initially something from the very generous St. Nicholas. That's why we call Santa Claus St. Nick. That's where he started, the image of Santa Claus. I have to look at that one because I'm not exactly sure. Christmas stockings, Christmas caroling, decking the halls with holly and decorating trees. Again, I've heard of a lot of these. We mentioned them earlier. Christmas caroling is more of the wassailing, apparently. And the Christmas stockings, that one's interesting to me. I wouldn't mind seeing where these came from. Again, as we said earlier, missionaries got to know a lot of different groups of people with varying religious systems and beliefs. All of these peoples and religions were lumped into the catch-all term of pagan. Exactly. So pagan doesn't have a set definition. It's just anything that's not us is pagan. Although Christians had the goal of spreading their religion across Europe, they were still quite fascinated by many of the customs and ways of the pagans. Clearly, they were fascinated enough to pick up a few of those beliefs and traditions and adapt them as part of the Christian celebrations. Interesting. So basically, what had happened here was the early Christianity prophets were going through Europe and basically were like, oh, all of these, maybe that last article might have been correct when it comes to ripping off things. Basically, they went to all these different religions and said, you guys have great traditions. We could incorporate these to help the spread of Christianity. Interesting. So it's not like, oh, these are all in celebration of Jesus. It's more like, hey, this can be fun. Let's do it. And that people are going to get involved. And it's going to be something to do every year. You know, it's interesting because one of the biggest issues that a lot of people have with Christianity is how commercialized it has become. And it's interesting with reading a lot of this stuff here because it's almost like the initial setup for the event, the holiday, have very similar roots. It's more like, you know, we see these traditions, we think they'll be fun, we're going to take advantage of them, and we're going to make Christmas into this big, grandiose celebration. And then now that we live in an age of capitalism being rampant, it's almost the exact same thing, where it's like, we see this, everyone's having fun, everyone is celebrating, let's make it even more grandiose and promote the hell out of it. And that's basically what they've done in terms of modern Christmas. But it's like, you can't really say, like, so many people, oh, we don't give our we don't give our kids Christmas presents because we don't support the over capitalistic nature of the holiday. But they've been doing it since the beginning of time. It's right here. Like, any historian can tell you that they've been doing gift giving since the beginning of time. And so really and truly, is it overcapitalized now? I mean, it is, obviously, because it's all about profits and spending as much money as you can on your kids and family. But even the simple gifts, like, even if you wanted to go simple and small, you're still exhibiting the old 15th, 16th, probably even before that, traditions that the initial Christian prophets were starting. Winter solstice celebration. Keep reading and you'll find that Christmas is inspired by traditions from the Romans, Celtics, Norse, Druids, and more. At the time, all of these different groups shared one big celebration that just happened to fall around Christmas time, the winter solstice. People living in the northern hemisphere celebrated the winter solstice, or the shortest day of the year, smack bang in the middle of December, and this is why Christmas just so happened to fall around the same time as many existing pagan holidays. Again, because Christianity started up on the northern hemisphere before going down to the south, it would make sense why things would fall into Christmas, whereas technically down in the southern hemisphere, it's the summer. The winter solstice has a huge part of pagan life, as they were primarily agricultural people. Winter marked the end of the year's harvest and the chance to enjoy the company of loved ones and rest from toiling the fields. Pagans could stop farming through the winter and instead devoted themselves to worshipping their various gods and celebrating with those around them. As winter in the northern hemisphere tends to be dark, cold, and hungry period of time, the winter solstice was celebrated to help keep people entertained and enjoy themselves until the sun rolled around again. Interesting. So that makes a lot of sense, given that why we celebrate here, because as most people know, Jesus' birthday is not the 25th. It's actually sometime in January, based on a lot of historical records that we have found. So while we celebrate Jesus' birth on the 25th, or Christians do anyway, it makes sense, in a sense, right? Like, let's celebrate it here because this is a traditional celebratory time. Obviously, in modern times with our technology now, we're not in we don't have an issue with food in the winter. We've got enough greenhouses that can still get the crops up. We've got enough barns and controlled environments to keep the cattle happy and everything like that. But it does make sense that we've kept these traditions historically. Why change them just because? So I can see where this is coming from and see where these things got their roots. Gift giving. Not only is December a time to celebrate winter solstice, but between the 17th and the 24th of the month, the Romans also celebrated Saturnalia, which we mentioned before. And feasting, drinking, giving gifts, and being joyful. These days, you fork out lots of money on Christmas gifts, as I mentioned, but back when the Romans exchanged small gifts for the sake of good luck. The idea was to give a gift in the hope of bringing in bountiful harvest the next year, rather than have huge lists of gifts to give. The Romans also shared only one gift with one other person. Ooh. Interesting. So that's where the capitalism comes into play. Before it was gifts for luck, now it's a okay, so I see where the capitalism is coming from now. Oopsie, that's my mistake. Santa's image and Christmas stockings. Our current modern day image of Santa Claus, clad in red fur with a big white beard, was largely developed by Coca-Cola in the 1930s, but the idea of an old man giving gifts to children dates much earlier than that, back to the time of said pagans. Father Christmas, otherwise known as Saint Nicholas, was the patron saint of children, the poor, and prostitutes. Interesting that he was the patron saint of children, the poor, and prostitutes, and most modern Christians despise the latter two, and most of them probably aren't too crazy about the first one either. That's interesting. That's more of a personal opinion, but you know. Living around 4th century AD, St. Nicholas is a generous bishop who was known for giving gifts to the poor, spouting a big beard and long cloak, much like the Santa we know and love. But even before St. Nicholas, there was another bearded old man called Odin. This deity was worshipped by early Germanic pagan tribes, traditionally portrayed as an old man with a long white beard, with an 8-legged horse called Sleipnir, he would ride through the skies, just like Santa's reindeer. During the winter, kids would fill their booties with carrots and straw and leave them by the chimney for Sleipnir to feed on. Odin would fly by and reward the children with little presents in their booties, or stockings, much like we do with Christmas. Wow. So the Santa Claus we all imagine in our heads today is a mishmash of St. Nicholas, the god Odin, Sleipnir, and Coca-Cola's iconic red dress character. I had no idea that the modern Santa was based on Odin and his horse. That's actually mind-blowing information for me. That is actually crazy. Christmas carols, we kind of touched on that earlier with the wassailing. Kissing under mistletoe. Ever wondered about the correlation between mistletoe and kissing? Well, funny enough, the tradition goes all the way back to the pagans. Everyone from the Romans and Celts to the Druids and the Norse had a thing about mistletoe. It was considered to be a highly sacred plant, involved in several pagan rituals. In the Roman world, mistletoe honored the god Saturn. To keep him happy, they would perform fertility rituals underneath sprigs of mistletoe. Yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. They would fuck under mistletoe. The god of fertility is blessing this lay is basically. Now we just kiss under the mistletoe. We don't have babies under the mistletoe anymore. Yeah, that would be really awkward if the family was around. In the real world of the Druids, mistletoe symbolized peace and joy in times of war. If enemies were to meet underneath mistletoe, they would drop their weapons and form a truce until the next day. In a way, kissing is a form of. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Decking the halls with holly. Mistletoe was a newly sacred plant for pagans. Holly was another holy plant connected with the god Saturn. During the Saturnalia holiday, they would make holly wreaths to exchange as gifts for good luck. At the time of Saturnalia, early Christians began to celebrate Christmas. However, they were often persecuted for practicing their new religion. It was lucky that Christmas coincided with Saturnalia, as it allowed Christians to harbor a cover for their Christmas celebrations. To avoid detection and make it look like they were celebrating Saturnalia, Christians started hanging holly wreaths around their homes. This allowed them to recognize other Christians and still do something nice to celebrate their sacred holiday. Eventually, as pagans decreased, holly became a symbol of Christmas instead of Saturnalia. Wow. That is pretty damn crazy. So it's less so, I'm noticing a trend here, it's less so that Christianity removed these things from paganism and made it their own, but when Christianity was getting started at the same time as these pagan traditions, then they ended up having to incorporate some of these but to avoid prosecution. And we just still do them now because it's what they did for 3,000, 4,000 years, or however long it's been. The Christmas tree decorating, I think we mentioned it earlier. They used to do it for, let's see here. Used to hang small metal ornaments on trees outside their homes. Each of these little ornaments represented a god, either Saturn or the family's personal patron saint. Early Germanic tribes practiced a similar tree decorating tradition, this time with fruits and candies to honor the god Odin through winter solstice. Christians seem to have merged the tree decorating with ornaments, candies, and fruits to make Christmas tree decorating one extravagant tradition. Huh. Interesting. So it was just like a way to sort of like celebrate the season. And they just happened to decorate with the trees and everything. The Vikings, by joining the dots, set Sol Invictus and Christmas to an equally important influence on our festive rituals today, came from other parts of Europe. Oh, the Germanic and Nordic. Oh, yeah, because the Vikings were Odin, like I just mentioned. The word Yule, for example, derives from a Viking festival which was held to encourage optimism and good luck during the depths of winter. The saga goes on to say that before that, Yule was celebrated a midwinter night, and that the king coaxed those who were dearest to him into becoming Christians. Interesting. There's a lot of different celebrations that we do for different reasons, but it's really interesting to kind of like go back through and sort of take a look at some of these traditions, because I do think we take some things for granted. As I mentioned earlier, and a lot of people will repeat the sentiment, that Christmas has definitely gotten overcapitalized. It went from gift giving as a sign of good luck to, like that article said, a multi-billion-dollar business. So I can definitely understand how some people would be like, I don't like this, or we should give less, or stuff like that. But I do think we take some of this stuff for granted. Like, homes look cozier around Christmas. There is a sense, like, a lot of these traditions have merit. Like, have you ever walked in, like when you put the Christmas tree up in your home and you sit back and you dim the lights and you just let the Christmas tree illuminate your home? Is there anything more calming than that? Really? I love going to my mother's house on Christmas because her and my sister, they decorate the entire house. The tree looks nice. All the animals seem to be calmer, which is crazy because my mom lives in a zoo. But everything is just, it's so much nicer during this time of year. And I know a lot of people have seasonal depression, but for me, on a personal note to end this video, this season has always been a highlight for me. I'm always seem to be in a better mood around this time of year. And I do things like this 12 Days of Christmas tradition that I've created because it allows me to share in that that joyful sensation, if you will, with you guys. Whether it be streams on Twitch, whether it be here on YouTube, or simply with friends. Like I had Rob and Lauren helping me throughout this week. Tonight, on the day this is being filmed, I'm doing Lethal Company with a bunch of friends. So hopefully you guys were there for that. But I like doing these things because I'm able to do, I'm able to sort of, I guess in a way, transfer some of that positive energy to those around me. That's what I do in general, but this season specifically, I really try to stay upbeat. I really try to spread that cheer. I really try to leave some sort of a positive impact on the people that have left a positive impact on me. And I feel like that's really what this time of year is supposed to be about. And I really hope that I was able to do that this year. And I hope that you are able to find some joy in this year. Because as you can tell, that's the actual point of the traditions. That's the point of the celebration. That's the point of the holiday. Whether you still follow the pagan traditions of Yule, whether you still follow the pagan traditions or the Viking tradition of Yule, or if you celebrate Hanukkah, if you celebrate Kwanzaa, if you celebrate Christmas, however you celebrate, I hope you remember the actual meaning of the holiday. And that's to spread cheer. That's to show love to your family. And for good luck for the next year. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Once again, my name is Eric. This is the Nomad. This has been the 10th day of Christmas. You've got one more video coming up tomorrow. It's going to be Santa Claus Santa Claus in Trouble. Very fun game. I actually recorded it earlier. I hope you guys enjoyed that video as well. And I hope to see you guys here as well on Monday for the digital holiday card. And I hope to see you guys in the future, both on this channel and my Twitch channel, because I've got a lot of great ideas for next year. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Good night.